Hey YouTube, what is up? I made a video the other day showing you the alternate engines you can have in a Chaos Dragon deck. This video is going to be more specific, and it's going to basically be how I run my Chaos Dragon deck, the strategies I use, and I'm going to do a couple test hands as well once I finish showing you the basic deck list. That way you can understand what I'm playing with and you could test it out online if you want to try it yourself. It's done very well for me in a couple of local tournaments, and I'm not, beating everybody all the time, but being able to go toe-to-toe with Satello Knights and stuff like that isn't all that bad. So to start off, one Dark Arm Dragon, one Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, one Gores. You could run more than one Gores if you want. I just find it's too cloggy if you do. And one BLS. After that, you got the Chaos Dragons, part of the Chaos Dragon deck. So here are the dragons. I run 3 Light Pulsar, and I do think 3 is necessary. If you run 2, you might not get it as often as you need, and I'd rather mill a Light Pulsar because you could special summon it from the graveyard with its effect by setting a Light and Dark from your hand than not have the ability to get any of them in any way. So I'd rather mill it and have the ability to special summon it later on by getting rid of cards in my hand than not have it in my graveyard at all. And I also like to run one Dark Flare Dragon because its effect is very useful for pulling cards. If you have a dragon in your hand and this on the field, you can send a dragon from your hand to the graveyard and a dragon from your deck to the graveyard. So you can use Dark Flare's effect to send a card like Eclipse Wyvern to the graveyard, then use Eclipse Wyvern's effect to banish Red Eyes, and then, I'm not sure if you could do this, don't quote me on it, but you can banish a card with Dark Flare after you send it to the graveyard. So you could technically, I think, send Eclipse Wyvern and then banish it, but I'm not sure if Eclipse Wyvern's effect wouldn't activate yet because it's still all Dark Flare and it would activate top down. So Dark Flare would banish Eclipse Wyvern before its effect activates. But you can banish Eclipse Wyvern later on as well if you do this with a different card besides sending an Eclipse Wyvern. Next, being that I mentioned Eclipse Wyvern already, 1 Eclipse Wyvern, 2 Black Dragon Collapsiprints, and 2 White Dragon Wyverbursters. I do run 2 of each just because you can continually pull them. I feel 3 of each is too much in this deck and it makes it stall a little too hard. So you can run 1 of each if you like to, but I really do feel like the best way to go is 2 and 2. And I do think Eclipse Wyvern is necessary in this deck. And just quickly, if you don't know their effects, if they are sent from the field to the graveyard, you get the opposite to the hand. So if, Black Dragon sent from the field to the graveyard, you get White Dragon to the hand. And then you get a special summon immediately by removing the Black Dragon that was just sent to your graveyard. Or you can special summon 2 of these if you have them both in hand by sending 1 Light, 1 Dark. And then you can XYZ into any level 4, which is pretty nice. The main engine of this deck that kind of makes it run in the only feasible way is 3 Raidens, 3 Lumina, and I do run 2 Lila only because I don't like running MST, because MST, even though you can use it on the opponent's turn because it's a quick play, I like Lila more because you can pull Lila anytime you have a Lumina on the field and Lila's in the graveyard, as long as you have a single card in your hand. So you can use Lumina to special summon Lila from the graveyard, then use Lila's effect to destroy any spell or trap on the field, whether it be active or not. And I do like to use Lumina's effect as well. If you have a Lumina and a Lightsworn target in the graveyard, you can use the Lumina on the field, and say you have a Lumina in your hand, you could send the Lumina in your hand to the graveyard and then special summon it. You don't need to special summon the only Lightsworn in your graveyard. You only have to special summon a Lightsworn, but you do need a target in the graveyard. So as long as you have any Lightsworn in the graveyard, you can special summon any Lightsworn that's in your hand as long as you have a Lumina on the field, because you get to discard any card to the graveyard and then special summon a Lightsworn, which is really nice. You could actually do Lumina to Lumina to Lumina and then use the last one to pull something like a Raiden, and then you can get, if you have the ability to, maybe a Dante with these 2 and do these 2 into a Michael. It really, really doesn't clog much, and I feel like it runs really smooth. Raiden himself being a level 4 tuner, you can use him for pretty much anything. You can do XYZs with him, you can do synchros, so you have a lot of wiggle room with this card. You could also combine this with a Light Pulsar, and you can pull out something like a Michael if you really wanted to. Not Michael, my bad. Leo, if you really wanted to, which is not that bad either. Next up, before I get to the engine that I use, I also like to have 2 Plague Spreader, 2 Effect Veiler, and a Glow Up Bulb. Effect Veiler I feel is necessary just because your opponent can screw you over a lot on their main phase, but Effect Veiler stops that. Plague Spreader is really good because if you normal summon it, you can use it to Synchro Climb. So if you have a Plague Spreader on the field and you have a, let's say, where is it? Oop, there it is. A light pulsar, you can use these two to synchro, get them into the graveyard, then use Plague Spreader's effect to bring it back and synchro with whatever you made with light pulsar. So you could synchro from a 6 with a 6 and a 2 to an 8, and then with an 8 and a 2 to a 10. So you could pull out something like a Dragocytos, what is it? Dragocytos, which is a level 10, and I have that in my extra deck as well. And it's a really good strategy, using it to synchro climb to stronger monsters. And then you also have a light pulsar in the graveyard as a card that could be possibly brought back with red eyes, or you can special summon it from the graveyard by sending a light and a dark from your hand to the graveyard. Next up, these art tuners. I did mention you can just use it to stop main phase stuff, and Glow Up Bulb is really useful because you're going to be milling a lot with this deck, and what Glow Up Bulb allows you to do is when it's milled or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it by sending the top card from your deck to the graveyard. So if you mill a Glow Up Bulb, you can special summon Glow Up Bulb and then mill the next card. So you basically got a free special summon and the same amount of mills you would have had anyway, which is really decent. You can also use this as a synchro because it's a tuner card, so you can pull out like level 7s if you combine it with a light pulsar. You can pull out level 6s like a Goyo if you combine it with a dark flare. So there are a lot of possibilities. Same thing with these, because they're both level 1s, you can do the same combinations I just mentioned. And for the last engine that I run, I do 3 Odd Eyes Dragon and 2 Odd Eyes Saber. Now the reason I do 2 Odd Eyes Saber and not 3 of them is because if you have 3, it can clog really easily. 2 of them I feel is just enough, and 3 of these, because you'd rather have if you have one of these in the graveyard, you still have 2. But if you only have 2 cards out and you only have more Odd Eyes Sabers, you can never special summon both of them. So I'd rather run more Odd Eyes Dragons, because I know if I mill one, I still have 2 in my deck, which would still allow me to special summon these 2 whenever I draw them, rather than have more Odd Eyes Sabers than Odd Eyes Dragons. Their effects are really good as well, and they're not too shabby, but they aren't the best effects ever. But the fact is, you can special summon this by basically having a Light Sworn on the field and this in your deck or hand, which is, you know, pretty dang good. To special summon a level 7 on your first or second turn really is something that can screw with a lot of people's strategies. And they're both level 7, so you can, XYZ into stuff like the Red Eyes Flare XYZ Dragon, and you can also go into something like a Big Eye or a Dracosac. So there's a lot of combinations that work very well with these cards being level 7 and their ability to special summon. And you also get to send Dark Fodder to the graveyard when you special summon this. So if you think about it, Odd Eyes Saber's effect allows you to send a light from the field to the graveyard and then a dark from your deck to the graveyard. So you have a light and dark card immediately in your graveyard, which you can then use to special summon something like a light pulsar or a dark flare from your hand, or a BLS if you have it in your hand as well. Now onto the spells that I run. I do 2 Solar Recharge. I feel like 3 is too cloggy. And I do 2 Charge of the Light Brigade as well. I'm sorry about that light, but it's just not gonna get any darker, unfortunately. I do 2 Solar Recharge, 2 Charge of the Light Brigade, and then I also do 1 Raigeki, 1 Foolish Burial, and 1 Soul Charge. Those are the 3 spells that I run that are just 1 of each. Soul Charge allows you to basically OTK on your second turn, so you can do a bunch of stuff, mill a bunch of cards, and then Soul Charge, not OTK. Yeah, I guess you would on the second turn, because you do whatever you do on the first turn, and Soul Charge to get a full field. And as long as they don't pull a Raigeki or something like that, you pretty much have a decent amount of cards in your graveyard to special summon on the first turn that you can then use to kill on the second turn. So it wouldn't be a 1-turn kill, it'd be a 2-turn kill, but it's a really decent strategy. Foolish Burial just allows you to get Eclipse Wyvern or any dark or light fodder card you need from your deck into the graveyard. And next up, I don't like to run traps myself, but I know a lot of people that I verse do. So I do 2 Trap Stun and 2 Royal Decree. Royal Decree stops all traps. Trap Stuns just stops it for 1 turn. So if I am side decking in something like a Light or Dark and Imprisoning Mirror, I probably would drop this down to 1 Royal Decree and just keep Trap Stuns in. That way, if I need to activate a Light Imprisoning Mirror, I don't screw myself too much with a Royal Decree, so I can actually stop them from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! If they have something like a Satellar Knights, while I keep going, because I have Light and Dark engines within this deck. Next, I'm just going to go into my side deck real quick. I do 1 Fellis, which is pretty easy to pull. Its effect's really good. If it's milled by a monster card effect, I believe, it can be special summoned to the field, and when it's on the field, you can send it from the field to the graveyard, I believe. Yep, it's target 1 monster. So you can send Fellis from your side of the field to the graveyard and then send any monster your opponent controls to the graveyard as well, and then you mill 3 more cards, which is really good because you probably will special summon this by milling, and that's really the only way you can special summon it besides using something like a Lumina. Next, I do Gen X Ally Birdman because that allows you to take any card you have on the field, put it back in your hand, and switch it with this card, and it's a level 3 tuner. So say you have an Eclipse Wyvern on the field as well as a Lila. You really can't do anything if you don't want to XYZ. You could pop Eclipse Wyvern or Lila back to your hand and then special summon wow, Gen X Ally Birdman, and then synchro into a level 7, something like a Black Rose if you have to wipe the field, or a Clear Wing synchro. You have a lot more options if you decide to side this in. Then Thunder King Ryo, it stops you from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! If you have this card on the field, you can basically stop anything your opponent's doing for a little while. It's also level 4, which means you could use it with a Gen X Ally Birdman or a Raiden to XYZ or Synchro for some pretty decent stuff. Next up is Pero Cerberus. If this card's milled and you take battle damage while this is in the graveyard, you banish it and then you get to destroy 1 card on the field. It's really good. I don't like to run more than 1 of it though, because it can be really, really cloggy. I wish it would banish cards, which would help me a little more, but it just sends them to the graveyard. So it's a good way to clean out your opponent's field on their battle phase. And, you know, it's not something you can do too often. Here's a Tragoidia. I do keep 1 on the side deck just in case, as well as 1 Chaos Sorcerer, because this is a Chaos Dragons deck. So if I know opponents have cards that don't like to be banished, I'll side deck in this. I then also run 2 MSTs. If I don't want to run a Lila for some reason, I'll just put 2 MSTs in if I know that I need to stop it on their turn as opposed to my turn. That is traps and spells, that is. And 1 Barrel from a Different Dimension, which is almost like a soul charge in the fact that any cards you banish up to 3 you can bring back. So you could special summon any of the Chaos monsters or any of the dragons, and then use this card to pull the Light and Dark material back into your graveyard and then special summon another card with it, which is really, really good. Then I have the 3rd Solar Recharge as well. I don't like to really keep it in, but if I know I need to like get cards fast, or if I need to draw and mill at the same time, Solar Recharge does come in handy for that. 2 Light Imprisoning Mirrors, 1 Vanity's Emptiness, the 3rd Royal Decree, and then a Shadow Imprisoning Mirror in case I have to verse Shaddolls. These 2 are really for fighting Shaddolls, and then these 3 are for fighting Satellar Knights. I guess this will work against Burning Abyss as well, but, you know, it's still to be seen. I guess you could use Shadow Imprisoning Mirror against hero decks too, but it depends on how they run their deck. But you can stop Shadow Mists pretty easily at that point. Okay, now onto the extra deck before I do some test hands and show you how I run the deck when I just get a random hand going both first and second. I run 2 3-stars, an Acid Golem, and a Wind Up Zen Mains, whatever you want to pronounce it, however you want to pronounce it. I just can't read today for some reason. I also like to put in a Leviair sometimes because that lets you get dragons back that are banished, which are level 4 or lower, and that can be an Eclipse Wyvern, and that can be either one of the baby dragons as well, so those are not too bad to keep in. I like Wind Up Zen Mains because its effect allows it to be not destroyed and also destroy a card on the field if it would have been destroyed this turn, which is nice. Acid Golem is just a quick way to get a 3000 beater out, and you do have to remove cards for it, otherwise you'll have to lose life points, and it's 2000 per turn after that, so you gotta be careful with pulling out Acid Golem, but it's not too bad. So I do like to keep it in. Until I get something like a Dante, then I'd probably take Acid Golem out because those mid-turn mills would be my savior. Next up, I run 1 Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, 1 Gaga Cowboy, 1 Castell, and 1 Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion's for getting over cards that are just not able to be destroyed by card effects, so you just pull half their life points and add it to Dark Rebellion, and then you just go off on them and destroy them and give them a pretty decent beating as well. Castell is Castell. It's not that bad. You can use its effect to send 2 cards that are attached to it to the graveyard, and then you can shuffle any card on the field back into the deck. And if you do it with an XYZ monster, just takes it off the field, or a Synchro monster, just takes it off the field. Gaga is good because you can chip people in the last turn if they have, say, 700 life points or 800 life points, and you can't attack them directly. You do your battle phase with 2 level 4 monsters, and then just XYZ into Gaga, and that's it for them. Evil Swarm Exciton Knight is to prevent your opponent from going off because you can use its effect anytime there is a chain. You can chain this on last and destroy all cards on the field if your opponent has more cards on the field and in their hand than you do. I also like to run 2 level 7 XYZs. I would like to run a Dracosac, I just haven't found one yet. I like to run Red Eye's Flare Metal because it stops your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And it can't be destroyed by card effects, which means that if they try and destroy it with a card effect, it won't work and they'll lose 500 life points every time an effect is activated. And Big Eye is good for taking cards that you can't destroy from your opponent and then just using it on your side of the field to destroy them, which is, you know, a really, really good effect. Then for the Synchro monsters I do one Ally of Justice Cataster, because if it battles a non-dark monster, it gets destroyed before anything even happens in the battle phase or the damage calculation. Go-Yo, because it's a good way to take your opponent's cards out of their graveyard and put them on your side of the field, stopping them from using cards like Shadal's to constantly pull from the graveyard. Instead, you get the Shadal on your side of the field, which works out pretty well for you. Then I do two Michaels, because they're a nice level 7. I also like to do one Black Rose. You can do the alternate version of Black Rose as well, but I just don't have it. Or you can put in a Clear Wing Synchro, that works as well. Then for level 8s, I like to do a Scrap Dragon and a Stardust Dragon. These two cards are basically your hope if you don't run into Satellars and stuff like that, because if you run into Satellars, you'd have to use a Light Imprisoning Mirror from your side deck, and that's where Scrap Dragon would come in handy, and Go-Yo Guardian would come in handy. Ally of Justice Cataster would come in handy as well. But cards like Michael get stopped, so you'd have to try and summon these cards instead. And Scrap Dragon is good because it lets you destroy any card in the field, but you do have to send one card from your side of the field as well, so you got to keep that in mind when you decide to use it. Is one Dragosaitos and one Leo. Leo can't be targeted by card effects during your anything except for your main phase 2, which is really good. So that means it can't be targeted by card effects during your opponent's battle phase or your own battle phase, which works very nicely. Dracosaitos can't be destroyed by battle, and then its effect is really long, so I'm just going to read it real quick. It says it cannot be destroyed by battle, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, send it to the graveyard. You can activate this card's effect that can make a second attack on an opponent's monster. So unlike Blackluster Soldier, it has to attack a second monster. Also, during your standby phase, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack is now half, and if this does happen, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the lost attack. So if your opponent has a card on the field that's like 3,000 attack, you can use Dragosaitos' effect to turn it into 1,500. Your opponent gets dealt 1,500 attack to their life points, so they go down 1,500, and then you can attack with Dragosaitos, I believe, and that's 4,000 minus 1,500 would be something like 2,500, so your opponent will lose almost 5,000 and 4,000 in one turn, which is not too shabby. Okay, so the first of our test draws will be us going first, and then we'll do one where we go second. So we have those 3, 4, and then 5. So for our first turn, we'd probably activate Solar Recharge to ditch our Lila, send it to the graveyard, so I'll say these two go right here. I'll leave the hand here, and then we get to draw 2 cards, which is an Odd Eyes Saber and a Red Eyes Darkness Metal, which actually works out really well. Then we send an Effect Veiler to the graveyard and a Odd Eyes Dragon to the graveyard as per Solar Recharge's effect, where it's draw 2, then mill 2. So now we have 2 light monsters and a dark monster in our graveyard, and we have a Red Eyes Darkness Metal, an Odd Eyes Saber, an Effect Veiler, a Dark Armed, and a Gores. So what we could do, if we wanted to do anything, was wait a turn, I'd say, because that would probably be our best bet, and not do anything. We have the Gores to back ourselves up because we don't have any cards in the field. So I'd probably just do that. You could use Effect Veiler if your opponent activates an effect. But I'm just going to go based on the assumption that we get attacked, so we get a special summon Gores. And Gores token. So we have 2 monsters now on the field. It would be our turn. We draw. We get a Light Pulsar Dragon, which actually works out really, really well. And I believe a Gores token is a light card. Yep, it is a level 7 Fairy Light Monster, which plays well for us. So what we can do is activate Odd Eyes Saber's effect, which is send a light monster from the field to the graveyard, and the token gets destroyed. Special summon that, and we also have to send an Odd Eyes Dragon from our deck to the graveyard. So we'll do that. I'll just shuffle really quick. And one more time. There we go. Okay, that should be good. So now we have this in our hand, which works out really well, and if we quickly count our graveyard, you'll see that we have 3, almost, actually we have 2 dark monsters. So what I would do next is normal summon a light pulsar by sacrificing a Gorz. That way we have 3 dark monsters in the graveyard. Then special summon Dark Arm because we have 3 dark monsters in the graveyard. I would then get rid of a... we have a choice to get rid of which one we want. I don't know really. I'd say we get rid of Odd Eyes Saber and banish it to special summon a Red Eyes Darkness Metal. Nah, we'll do Light Pulsar for this. So we'll get rid of a Light Pulsar, and we have a Red Eyes Darkness Metal on the field now, a Dark Arm Dragon, and we're going to use Red Eyes Darkness Metal's effect to pull an Odd Eyes Saber. Ooh, this is really not Odd Eyes Saber, Odd Eyes Dragon, my bad. That's really hard to see with the light, I'm sorry about that. So now we have an Effect Veiler in the hand, and we have 4 monsters on the field. We can use Dark Arm's effect, getting rid of these 2 cards to destroy any 2 cards your opponent has, being it a monster or a trap, which is really good. So you can wipe out 2 monsters if they summon 2 monsters, 2 traps, whatever it may be. Then you can either attack completely now with 2800, 2800. Right there, that's 5600. Plus 2500, that's 8100. I'm pretty sure. I think I might have got my math wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 8100. And then you can attack with 2800, which is 90. So 8100, 8900 at 10,900. Or if you want to play it really safe, you can do these 2 if your opponent has another monster. So we'll XYZ those 2. And you can either pull out a Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, which would allow you to do damage to them every time they activate an effect. They lose 500 life points. Or you can do a Big Eye and take another one of their cards in case they have a 3rd monster you want to get rid of. So you get rid of like an Odd Eyes, take their monster, and then attack with all these. And I don't think there's a way that they can defend against all this. So for a second turn where you didn't have anything on the field the first turn, I think it's a really, really explosive way to play the game, and it worked out pretty well. So I'm going to do a test hand now where we are going second, just so you can see, because I haven't actually used any Light Sworn cards yet, which is really, really odd for this deck because it pretty much runs on Light Sworn. So if I didn't use any Light Sworn thus far, it's actually quite rare to win without using any Light Sworn monsters. So let me shuffle the deck one more time. Okay, and now for the second turn test hand where we'll draw 6 cards. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so the first thing we'd probably do is activate Charge of the Light Brigade, which will allow us to then, this is our hand, not our graveyard, mill 1 Lumina, a Royal Decree, I'm just going to put these here so we can see them, and an Odd Eyes Saber. So now we have 2 light cards in the graveyard, and that would go there. Next thing, we have a Lila and the ability to have 2 Lilas in the hand, which actually isn't that good. But because we did activate Charge of the Light Brigade, we get to add a Light Sworn from our deck to our hand. So I'm going to do a Lumina. Let me just shuffle real quick. So what you'd be able to do, now that you have Lumina in the hand, is summon Lumina. Send Lila from your hand to the graveyard to get a special summon Lumina. Then you'd activate the second Lumina's ability and send your Eclipse Wyvern from the hand to the graveyard to get the third Lumina, not third Lumina, my bad, the Lila. And then because Eclipse Wyvern was sent to the graveyard, you get to add, where are you? Ah, almost my next card. Your Red Eyes Darkness Metal to the banished zone. And now what we do is with this, I'd probably take these 2, XYZ them into something like an Acid Golem. That way you have protection from being destroyed this turn, and probably use Lila, turn it to the side, and use its effect, which would allow us to pop any of their cards and possibly attack with Acid Golem if anything, and then the turn would end, which would mean this is not special summon, by the way, that's just the graveyard. You would use Lila's effect to mill 3 cards, and we mill a Raiden and another Effect Veiler and another Raiden. So now I'd assume the Lila will be destroyed by this point, just because it's a really, really low defense monster. And it'd be our turn. Ooh, I almost drew 2 cards. And we draw another Lumina, believe it or not. And we'd have to send, in our standby phase, a Lumina from Acid Golem to the graveyard to keep it on the field. So in this turn, what we would do, again, is summon Lumina, use Lumina's effect to send a Lila, use Lila's effect to special summon Lumina. Well, this is in the graveyard, and then use Lumina's effect, and we'll send an effect value to the graveyard to special summon a Raiden, and then we'll use Raiden's effect to mill 2 cards, so Light Pulsar, Odd Eyes Saber. Believe it or not, we've only milled thus far light monsters, which is quite ridiculous if you think about it. Okay, so from here we have some options, I think. I'll take these 2, I'd say, to the graveyard, and then you get to pull out, there we go, a Michael. If we, attack and don't kill them this turn, I'm assuming it goes 1 more turn. So Michael and Lumina's effect would make us mill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. And this actually plays to our advantage, believe it or not. I'm going to just go based on the guess that Lumina does get destroyed this turn. I'm assuming these 2 stay. And now it is our turn. So the last Lumina is detached from Acid Golem. We draw a card. So now we have 2 Light Pulsars in our hand. And what we will do is banish 1 light and 1 dark monster. Ooh, wrong light monster, actually. We would banish, where is it? All the way at the bottom. There we go. 1 Eclipse Wyvern and 1 Gores to special summon a Light Pulsar. This would allow us to then have Red Eyes to the hand because we banished an Eclipse Wyvern. And then what you can do is special summon Red Eyes by banishing Light Pulsar, and then special summon the Light Pulsar from your hand with Red Eyes' effect, and then you can attack for 2,500, 2,800, which is 5,300, 8,300, and then 2,600 on top of that. So that's 8,900. No, it's 10,900, I believe. I might have got that wrong. And if they had anything standing in the way, you could use Michael to get rid of any traps, spells, or monsters that they had. If it's one strong monster that was kind of giving you some trouble, and you pretty much win at that point. So it works out really, really well if you do think about it. It's not guaranteed to win every time, and these 2 test hands did just happen to go fairly well. You will occasionally have a dead draw or something like that, but for the most part, the way I have this deck running, it really doesn't feel all that cloggy to me, and it's really good. The only thing is now the next turn, if we somehow didn't kill them, we start losing life points from Acid Golem, and combine that with Michael's making us losing us life points. If you do too much, you could kill yourself theoretically with just these 2 cards, so you got to be careful with that. But I really think you would have won or lost at this point already. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to click subscribe if you like this, and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.